the HCL Tech Trends and Insights podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the HCL Tech Trends and Insights podcast. Today, I'm joined by Debraj Bhattacharya, Senior Industry Specialist, Retail and CPG, and Lalit Kumar Singh, Senior Solutions Director, both from HCL Tech. And we're going to be discussing the recent findings of HCL Tech's Blueprint to AI-led operating model research in the context of the retail industry and with the emergence of Retail 5.0, with a specific look at powering smarter supply chains and AI-enabled materials tracking. Before we get to the questions, Debraj and Lalit, please introduce yourself and your role to our audience. Debraj, let's go with you first.
Sure. So hi, Nicholas. Hi, Lalit. Good to be part of this conversation. It's a pretty interesting topic, and we will spend the next 30 minutes discussing that. So I'm basically a senior industry specialist focusing on retail and CPG industry group here in HCL Tech. So my focus is more on the domain side of things, I would say industry consulting side of things. And this topic, like as I said, I mean, it's pretty much, I would say, top of the mind for many of our client stakeholders. So really looking forward to it.
That's great. And Lalit?
Hi, Nicholas. Hi, Debraj. Thank you. So I'm a Senior Solution Director in HCL Tech, and I'm working as a SME for track and trace for any industry. And retail is like one of the industry where I designed this track and trace solutions, which is based on the IoT and AIoT. So this is my role to implement and deploy the track and trace solution for industries. Thank you.
That's great. Well, let's dive into the questions. So firstly, the research indicates that product-aligned companies are 4 times more likely to maximize ROI on AI investments, which will see those companies that adopt these models have a significant competitive advantage. Debraj, how does this alignment specifically enhance smart materials tracking capabilities in the Retail 5.0 era?
Sure. I mean, that's a great question. So basically, if you look at, there would be two broad ways of dealing things. One would be the product-led operating model, which we would know of. The second would be a typical services-based approach. Now, some of the benefits of a PLOM, which very much aligns with something as important as smart material tracking, there would probably be 3 or 4 things. One is that PLOM pretty much focuses around a specific product or suite of products, as against the services model, which would be more of a project-based approach. So naturally, if we were to have a product within our organization, and that too a complex product as the one which we are discussing, it actually makes sense to hard focus on the product-led model rather than the services approach. And that ties in pretty much with the way metrics are measured in a product-led operating model. So typically we would have what we will call OKRs, which would be, so basically they would be the objectives and key results, which we all know of. Now, measuring each of the modules within the entire material tracking system is important because there would be a lot of sub-modules, if you will, within the smart material tracking system. And measuring the efficacy of each of those would be important rather than waiting for the entire step to get over. I mean, classically, what we would do in a waterfall model. So that probably wouldn't make the cut for a complex solution as a smart material tracking. And the third one, which probably is the most important, is the inherent agility of a product-led model. What we would say is that fail fast, fail forward. I mean, you keep on iterating. If there is something which you would learn in the process, bring it back onto the next step, rather than again waiting for the entire thing to get over. And I think that ties in very well with a complex solution as smart material tracking. Because if you look at, I mean, if you look at this this entire material tracking thing, it would be touching across multiple modules within the organization framework, starting from the sourcing stage, right onto the inbound logistics, to warehousing. Within warehousing, you would have inbound, outbound, and then the outbound logistics, the entire stretch, and also the last mile piece of it. If we were to have some some process for which we have to wait for the entire thing to get over, I think that kind of is it's a bit of a dampener in terms of efficiency. So rather fail fast, move forward, and keep on iterating. I think that's a much better approach here. And that's why I think these reasons probably they are the ones why I would think the product-led model is much more apt for a solution that we are talking about.
And just before we move on, could you explain for our audience your understanding or the definition of Retail 5.0?
Yeah, surely. That's been talk of the town, Retail 5.0. Earlier, if you were to look at Retail 4.0, broadly speaking, it would align to the manufacturing side of things, which would be Industry 4.0, where there would be things like the production lines and let's say things like digitization of the entire production process and so on. But the way retail is evolving, that's something which is pretty fast-paced, I will say. All the modules which we would typically know of in retail, let's say from the front-end modules, the point of sale, store operations, merchandising, or on the back-end side, supply chain, sourcing, and all of that. Earlier, they used to be in silos, and each of these functions would have had their own kind of nuances and all. What is happening of late is that all of that is having an overarching theme now, which is customer experience. Everything that you do, right from sourcing the product onto the final selling piece, including digital marketing, digital commerce, the entire channel management piece, everything aligns with one ubiquitous goal, which is how better we can add experience to the customer. So this transition from the earlier way of looking at things in retail to a more, I would say, focused approach where probably front and center, there is one entity, which is customer. That is something which we would call as a transition from Retail 4.0 to Retail 5.0. So that's how we would define. Everything pretty much would center around the customer experience as the main theme. And that's why we have taken it a leg up, I would say, from Retail 4.0 to 5.0.
Thank you. And before we come back to you about AI-driven smart tracking, Lalit, I'd like to ask you about emerging technologies like IoT, Edge AI, or blockchain. What's their potential impact on smart materials tracking in this Retail 5.0 environment?
Well, see, this is so in this new generation, a Retail 5.0, so IoT plays a very important role in terms of because IoT adds a sensors, tags to their material, pallets, container, and allow a continuous a tracking of these materials or these pallets with their conditions, okay? Like what is the temperature, what are the different parameters associated with that pallets and all. Now, once you will have the visibility of all these things, so retailers means make sure that the shrinkage will be less. They have the right decision which they can take, and if they can optimize their inventory and improve the customer satisfaction, because at the end of anything, customer satisfaction is very important. Now, coming to the next, what you asked, that Edge AI. So as people don't want to wait for anything, every customer or every retailer want that, okay, data should be processed locally. So Edge AI enable this by processing data right at the source where these sensors, these devices are generating data. They don't have to wait for their decision making. Okay, for example, like if there is any material which are very temperature sensitive, okay, and if that is in the risk because of if refrigerators are failing, okay, so Edge AI can trigger the alert and the right action can be taken immediately, and without any waiting for the data will go to the cloud and process and then come back. So then Edge AI plays a very important role. Third point you just mentioned about the blockchain. So this create this put a trust or the transparency layer on the top of that. So it create like a chain of custody, means with all the transaction. And in this ecosystem, if the retailers are like have a different means suppliers ecosystem or supply chain ecosystem, so trust and is very important, means that whether the data is being compromised or not. So blockchain help in ensuring that data is never compromised from end to end of the supply chain. So altogether, if you see, so IoT, Edge AI, and blockchain give like a more responsive and smarter tracking in the retail supply chain.
And to go back to the supply chain, Debraj, how can AI-driven smart tracking solutions contribute to greater sustainability across it for retailers?
Sure. A system as material tracking that touches upon quite a few modules within supply chain, starting from the sourcing node right on to the inbound logistics to the middle layer, which would be warehousing distribution, within warehousing, inbound, outbound, both of those. And then you move on to the outbound logistics, which would have things like first mile, middle mile, last mile, and so on. Now, inherently, this entire value chain is amenable to a lot of emissions, because if you look at, typically the transportation piece, the trucking and all of that, there would be a huge component of determining how much efficient each of those leg of operations is, which is precisely what a smart material tracking would do. Now, some of the benefits which would come by, one would typically be better waste reduction, if we talk of. Then there would be things like improved energy efficiency, because that's very important. How do we reduce carbon emissions in this process? If the tracking mechanism is pretty robust, then you can have the right levers to be put in for that specific module within the material tracking piece to probably do something around carbon emissions. And then you have this entire regulatory compliance piece. Is there a way we can also have greater regulatory compliance? So all of these are enabled a lot more if you have the tracking piece intact, because till the point you know what's going wrong, you can't really do that. The other piece also comes for one specific area of retail, which would be more around perishables. Say the food and beverage segment and all. The entire leg of green supply chain, which we call, which is like how much efficiently you are sourcing in terms of the freshness of ingredients and so on, that becomes very critical, because the farm to fork leg of supply chain, as we call it, that is very much dependent on the freshness of ingredients. So over there also, if you were to have a very robust tracking mechanism, you can actually figure out which portion of that entire value chain you would need to lay more focus on. So, that's kind of a way in which we can have a better control on some of these, emissions and other things, energy utilization and other things. So I think, that kind of, I would say material tracking is probably the starting point before you would think of any conservation principle, because you need to know what's going wrong in the system or what's going right in the system to even take the next necessary actions.
And Lalit, the research found that 66% of large organizations cited difficulties in scaling innovation due to fragmented systems. So what challenges or integration challenges should retailers anticipate when deploying AI and IoT-based smart materials tracking solutions? And how does a product-aligned operating model help overcome these challenges?
Well, so means when if retailers want to deploy any AI or IoT-based smart material tracking solution, they often face challenges like data silos. Okay, and Devraj also touched that point. So these means retailers are working with the multiple ecosystem, and all these departments and all these have their own independent systems, and their data are are residing at a different location, and these all are silos, working in a silos. So that's number one big challenge. Now, second is inconsistent protocol. there are like the IoT devices, they are different or different tags or things which are sending data or communicating in a different protocol or interface, which are not like compliant or interoperable. So that is why these are the some challenges. And third is the security and the compliance, based on the different geography, based on the different policies. So these are the three big challenges which nowadays AI or IoT based smart material tracking deployments are facing. But when it comes to the product aligned operating model, which you touched upon, so that gives that shifted the whole focus for these functional silos to the end-to-end means ownership of the outcomes, based on the outcomes, means what is the end goal, what we want to achieve. Okay. So in that way, means we do a cross-functional collaboration between multiple data, between multiple systems, and then we try to build the integrated platform so that all the data can come on the single platform by integration, by making sure that there is some seamless data flow to all the models, AI models, or the IoT solutions which are being built to provide the one means or a unified means business outcome based means result. In that way, means we try to overcome all these challenges, and this help in accelerating the deployment, means any AI or IoT based smart material tracking deployment, and which also help in scaling means on the single platform.
Thank you. And now a big topic in this whole process of proving value. Debraj, what foundational metrics should retailers establish early on to evaluate their smart materials tracking effectiveness?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very pertinent question, because even before clients would think of implementing a solution as this, they would want to ensure that the ROI and everything is intact. Broadly, what we have found is that 3 to 4 areas which are pretty much critical for any client to, or any organization to be mindful of when they were to implement something like that. One would be the reduction of effort to locate assets. Because if you look at smart material tracking, one of the benefits is that you can locate assets within the entire value chain a lot easily. And assets can be your finished goods, it can be your raw material, it can be work in progress, or as a matter of fact, any other thing as well. What we have found is that typically, based on our implementation experience, about 80 to 85% of reduction in effort, as high as that, can be seen if we were to have a smart material tracking solution implemented. And I'm talking more from our HCL's experience, the solution that we have been building in-house. The second would be reduction in inventory holding cost. Again, inventory holding cost is a big challenge for many of the retailers. Of late, with tariffs and all, there was also, I mean, this was a bit more aggravated because many retailers, they preponed their buying for the fear that tariffs would come later on, which led to bloated inventory. Now, if you were to have bloated inventory, eventually you have to do markdowns and all, which eventually again hits on your margin. So this inventory manageability, how much can we reduce the overall inventory holding cost? That would be the second parameter. Roughly from our experience, about 10 to 15% is what we have seen if we were to implement a solution, AI-based solution, as the one which we have within our organization. The third would be improvement in inventory accuracy. I mean, when you are tracking inventory, how much accurate your inventory tracking is by minimizing discrepancies, say, in unaccounted inventory volumes and so on. That would be the third one. Roughly about 60 to 75% benefit we have found if you were to implement an AI-led solution in that area. Well, we can go on. The fourth can be, say, improvement in cycle count time, because that's very important for any of these warehouse or retailer store operations. That can be the fourth one. Fifth would be reduction in wastage. Again, that's a very important thing, because material utilization, that should be paramount. And we can talk of models like FIFO, which is first expiry, first out, or FIFO, which is first in, first out. If we talk of perishables as an example, the food and beverage segment, or where the shelf life is a lot less, then first expiry, first out might be relevant. And over there again, how much reduction we are bringing about in terms of maybe a percentage. From our experience, roughly 50 to 60 odd % benefit we have found in this area. And the last, which I would want to touch upon, is improvement in production capacity by ensuring timely availability of the right materials, because that's very important at the right time, at the right place, at the right node within the entire supply chain. I think that's where also a smart material tracking solution comes to help. And I think so these 5 or 6 parameters, I mean, I probably overshot the number which you talked initially, 3 or 4, but these would be important for any organization to be mindful of the benchmarks, and they can set actually a benchmark, but anything less than this, probably we won't go ahead with this solution. But based on our experience, the numbers that I quoted, I mean, they paint quite a promising picture for a solution as this.
And Lalit, given the scenario where these solutions are effective and visibility has increased, how would this influence operational and leadership decision-making and efficiency in the product-aligned operating model within a retailer?
Yeah, so see, means if you have a smart material tracking solution in place, so you will have the visibility of all your assets, what is the location of that asset, how it is moving, okay, what are the parameter associated with that asset. So all this data and the parameters help to take like a faster or data-driven decision. You can like reroute your if required, means if you want to make sure that material reach to the destination as fast as possible, and based on these you can reroute the complete material shipment. And also if there is any data which is compromised, like if based on if anything like expire or because these all things you can track it, so you can take the decision very fast with this with these visibilities. And when it comes to like the product alignment operating model, so all this visibility help you in taking a decision, like if product team want to make the last mile delivery, and based on the location information, you can easily reroute the that material so that customer will have a better experience. It will reach to the destination fast. Similarly, means you know that which material is located where and what are the space how you want to utilize the space. Okay, so the product team who are responsible for all that, they can configure, they can make sure that the right space or right material will be placed at the right location, so that it will be the whole space will be utilized in the right way using the IoT sensors or the tags or different other technology. And even all the data which are coming to the platform, our AI model can learn and give you the better insight for improvement, which will help in reducing the cost, efficiency, and also increase the productivity of the whole solution or the full objective. So in that way, it will give more like the ownership and also accountability, and it turns the visibility into the action, what you want to perform, what quickly you want to take an action based on these data.
Okay, and finally, and I'll come to both of you for this, but let's start with you, Debraj. What organizational or cultural shifts are essential for retailers to fully embrace AI-powered smart materials tracking?
That's probably the most important question, and spot on you are there, Nicholas. I mean, that reminds me of a famous quote by management guru Peter Drucker, who had famously said that culture eats strategy for breakfast, which means that you can have a lovely strategy in place, but as long as it's not backed up by the right cultural alignment, things won't, things will be haywire. One of the things for a solution as material tracking is that it touches upon areas which are very much labor intensive in any organization. You can talk of the upstream sourcing side, you can talk of the middle layer of warehousing. Again, within warehousing, we know that the step of picking, which comes before picking is probably the most labor intensive in terms of, the extent of labor involvement and the stretch to which they would have to walk around and so on and so forth. And then you have the outbound side as well, the transportation careers and all are involved. One very prominent fear which probably comes to your mind is that if you were to implement something as an AI-based material tracking, would there be an impact on our jobs or the labor-intensive nature of the jobs that we are currently in? And that has been a fear which has often been, it has been espoused by a few of the organizations as well with with whom we have dealt. The response to that would be, we are not really taking away jobs. We are enabling the person to perform a lot better in terms of what they are doing. So the classic fear of AI, will it take jobs, that kind of plays out in ways. And it's understandable because the labor intensive nature of operations, which a module like this touches upon, that is there. So I think that would be one of the cultural issues which needs to be tackled in a proper way, where we probably would just need to remind the organization that we are complementing the labor force who would be working at each of these legs by providing them inputs around greater visibility and not anything more. And I think that's one cultural shift probably which kind of is warranted. That kind of comes top of my mind.
Yes, just to add what Devraj mentioned. So one is that, and second is like because most of the organizations are using their legacy systems. So adoption of the new technology or the new system is also one of the things which are we have to see how this technology can be adopted by the existing resources which they are working on the ground. So that is also one thing.
Thank you both so much for your time and insights. I suppose it's also a case of once the AI solutions have been rolled out and people have more free time to focus on higher value added tasks, what exactly do they do? How does the organization support them in that venture? I'd like to conclude the podcast now and just thank you both so much for your time and insights. And if you're interested in taking a deeper dive into the research, you can click the link in the description below.